just a doggone world of music, the idea of the airman corps, and I am just, I have to say, ecstatic that in the last 5 to 7 years of some of this renaissance, no pun intended, of music dedicated to this time, it's been very hard to find recordings from this era, but we have them for you, and for your information, simply go to our website, millenniumofmusic.com, and you're always very gratified when you do. Our technical director is Christopher Drummond, and for Sirius XM Satellite Radio, this has been your producer and host for Millennium. I'm Robert.
Okay, so it's about 10. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Las Cruces virtual worship service. My name is Sarah Reyes, and I will be today's moderator. Here's a couple of things that will help make our service run a little better. Number 1, please keep yourself muted and your video off during the service and during the songs. Number 2, we will turn off the congregation chat function throughout the worship service to minimize distractions. However, we will have the chat function available during a few segments for you to interact with if needed. Number 3, you may also widen your own screen when in the split video option. This will make it easier to view service associates' lyrics on screen as well as the videos within the service. Finally, for best audio service, we recommend using headphones if you're alone or a Bluetooth speaker if you're in groups. Please enjoy today's service.
Good morning. It's good to be with you today. I'm Catherine Massey, Director of Music, and I'd like to invite you to sing with me Sarah Dan Jones's Meditation on Breathing. And there are 3 parts to it, so as we sing one and move to another, you can stay with one or go right ahead. Sing any part you want to. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe
Good morning. Our opening words today are from the Reverend Karen G. Johnston, based on words of the Reverend Rebecca Parker. Let us gather together, making a place of honesty where we commit to discover how to live among the ruins, how we might move among the ruins and find what can be saved. With our collective liberation in each of our hearts, let us gather up those materials we need to build and rebuild. Beloved community in our midst. In gathering this morning, may we be strengthened for what lies ahead.
And good morning, and now please join me with the words for today's chalice lighting, which are taken from Connection and Commitment by Reverend Cynthia Landrum. As we kindle this flame, may it spark in each of us connection and commitment to this living tradition and to each other. And now please join me in saying the Church's affirmation of covenant. The words will be printed on your screen. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, through every land, by every tongue. Faith, though small, outruns soon. Soon has barons of Mayhem more, where the day is in la canción. Vi cada tierra cantamos.
Good morning, all, and welcome to our continuing virtual worship services for the Unitarian Universalist Church of Las Cruces. If you're hearing and seeing this, I congratulate you for remembering to set your clocks forward 1 hour last night for the start of daylight savings time. My name is Gary Cockrell. I'm your service associate for today, and I'm delighted to be with you this morning. Actually, this is my first opportunity to serve as your service associate. So I've been preparing diligently, including heeding the advice of others I've received along the way. For example, my good friend and experienced church service associate, John Seeley, advised me, don't worry, Gary, the only reason you'll be remembered is if you screw up. Another piece of advice came from Katie Fitzgerald. Many of you know Katie is a very experienced service associate as well as a service leader. As a matter of fact, last week she served as service associate, and I was impressed that she sang the doxologies. Katie's advice to me was, Gary, I've heard you sing, so I suggest you let Catherine handle it this Sunday. So thank you, Catherine, for that. So I'm going to try my best today to do a job well, but no matter how this comes out, one way or the other, I want you to know, and I must tell you that Maggie Locatelli is responsible for everything I know. So I hope those folks won't mind that I poked a little fun at them, and I'll leave it to each of you to decide how much truth was in what I just told you. The Reverend Dr. Kalani Casella is in the virtual pulpit today and will lead the worship service. Unitarian Universalism has no creed or dogma. We are a covenant-based church, meaning that we agree to live in relationship with one another according to Unitarian Universalist principles and our congregation's covenant of right relations. We embrace diversity in all its forms. Everyone is welcome. You can learn more about our church at our website, uuchurchlc.org. In order to contain the spread of coronavirus, all meetings and services at the church are currently being held using Zoom software. If you have any questions about how to use Zoom, you may contact Sarah Reyes, the church's technical support staff member, who will help you. I know personally we all get frustrated at times with the idiosyncrasies of Zoom meetings, the pregnant pauses, the times when audios or videos are mistakenly turned off or on, or when more than one person tries to speak at the same time. However, I urge that we overlook these shortcomings and just be thankful that Zoom software allows us to continue to fellowship during these difficult times. If you are visiting us today, we'd like to meet you. Please take this opportunity to introduce yourself by turning on your mic and camera and then sharing your name and where you are. We'd also like to know how you heard about our virtual worship services. Do we have any visitors today who would like to introduce themselves?
I'm Mark Hohenstreiter, and I'm a friend.
Welcome, Mark.
And I'm acquainted with Dr. Tara Gray, who's a member of the church.
Thank you for joining us, Mark. Anyone else? We're pleased that you have joined us today for our service. You can also leave your email in the chat box shown at the bottom of your screen so we can invite you to other church services and activities. Directly following this service, there will be a 15-minute opportunity to fellowship with one another. Just stay linked to this site after the service ends and you will be placed in a breakout room. And for those who forgot to set their clocks forward and will just be joining us at that time, you will immediately be welcomed to a breakout room. Please be aware that religious education begins at 11:30 using its own Zoom link. Today I have several announcements. First, from David Rice and the Social Justice Committee. Next Sunday, March 21st, the Social Justice Committee will hold a special meeting to select this year's Change for Change charities. This meeting will occur at 2 p.m. via Zoom and in a time slot normally reserved for the roundtable. Members and friends of the church are invited to participate in polling for selection. Another announcement from Sherry Caulfield. If you have not yet signed up to attend the virtual CASITA meeting to examine the meeting of the eighth principle and what its adoption might look like, you still have just a little time. We'll be taking reservations until Monday, tomorrow, March 15th. There are a few open seats left. And if you contact Sherry by RSVPing to sherry@uuchurchlc.org, she can tell you of the times and make a reservation for you. I have three announcements from Reverend Kalani. First, due to the low sign-up rate for the Navigating Grief course, Reverend Newton and Kalani have decided to cancel the course until a later date. Secondly, the UUCLC weekly news bulletin will cease effective immediately. The news editor decided last week to step down after 10 years supporting the newsletter. We sought a backup for Annette Turrentine since 2018, yet no help has yet come forth. Please join me and the UUCLC staff in expressing our deep gratitude to Annette for her years of sustaining news. The monthly light will continue. Thirdly, from Reverend Kalani, the sanctuary floor renovation is underway, and he asks that you do not enter the building until further notice. And finally, from Susan Hishka and the board, a congregational special budget meeting will begin today at 12:45. See, there are 3 places where you can find a link for this meeting: Week in a Glance, the call to today's service, or today's order of service. Your attendance would be appreciated because your vote is needed for the sanctuary restoration project. Thank you for listening to these words of welcome and for being tuned with us today.
Good morning, church. My name is Olive, and I'm here with my brother.
I am Owen.
Beyond the unmistakable caution against slander and gossip, this story sets an example. We present to you Socrates, the test of 3. There once was a man who, after hearing an unflattering rumor about a friend of Socrates, hurried to the philosopher to spread the gossip.
Hey Socrates, you wouldn't believe what I heard about your friend.
He said when he found Socrates.
Wait a moment.
Socrates said to him,
Before you tell me what it is you want to say, let's put it to the test of 3.
The test of 3?
repeated the man.
That's right. Here's the first test. Is it true? Is what you wanted to tell me about my friend something you've confirmed to be true, or is it just hearsay that you're spreading around without proof?
The man was a bit embarrassed and replied,
Oh well, I actually haven't confirmed the story myself. I only heard it in the marketplace.
I see. So you were about to tell me something that wasn't true? You were about to spread misinformation? Huh? Alright, let's see if it passes the next test. Is it good?
Again, the man blushed and slowly shook his head.
No, it's not actually a bad thing that I heard.
The man explained.
That's surprising. You hurried over here to tell me something about my friend that was bad but might not even be true. Well, let's see if you passed the third test. Is it useful?
The man lowered his gaze and said slowly,
No, I don't think so.
I see. Well, if what you want to tell me isn't true, useful, or good, I suggest you don't tell me at all.
Thank you.
Woohoo!
Our next hymn is a song arranged by Nick Page, and the words come from the Navajo prayer, Peace Before Us. And I think that if you'll join me in singing and the hand gestures, they will help you to remember the words as we go along. We'll sing it several times. Peace before us, peace behind us, peace under our feet. Peace within us, peace above us, let all around us be peace. Peace before us, peace behind us, peace under our feet. Peace within us, peace above us, let all around us be peace. Peace before us, peace behind us, peace under our feet. Peace within us, peace above us, let all around us be peace. Oh, let all around us be peace.
I'm sorry, we'll try that again. I was muted. Thank you, Catherine, for that lovely hymn. One of the ways we support one another in community is through the sharing of joys and sorrows, especially in this time of social distancing. It is crucial that we make attempts to stay connected with one another. Our church's website has a link which allows you to confidentially submit a joy, sorrow, or milestone to Reverend Casella. You can specify who you would like your submission to be shared with the caring team and or the congregation, or if you prefer, it remain confidential. I'd also remind you that you can submit a joy or sorrow in real time by clicking on the chat box and adding your comment. The chat box is shown at the bottom of your screen. I have several comments that were shared with the church this week. The first is shared by Sarah Thomas. Sarah indicates she is recovering well after successful total knee replacement surgery and has already been walking the halls and doing physical therapy. She anticipates release from the hospital Saturday or Sunday. Shared by Carol Winkler. Carol continues to improve and get better each day and is taking walks to stay active. She thanks everyone who called or sent a card and for the generous acts of kindness from the congregation. And finally shared by Jack Welch and Jennifer Tantrum. As many of you know, Gail Trantham suffered a severe aortic dissection February 23rd. She had 2 surgeries Monday and Tuesday of this week. The first few days were difficult, but as the week progresses, she is improving daily and her spirits are up. Special thanks to all those who have reached out. Your warm wishes and love have helped her and Jack through this difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, for your leadership, and to all for the joys and sorrows. We lift up all persons spoken and those that we hold in our hearts. Today, instead of a spoken prayer, we're going to have a video meditation by the beautiful chorus.
Please let me be brave. Please let me see my choices clearly. Please let me be brave. I wanna be brave. Please let me see my choices clearly. Let me be brave. I wanna be brave. Let me see my choices clearly. Please, let me be brave. Let me see my choices, yeah. Please, I wanna be brave. Please, I wanna see my choices all out in front of me. Please, let me be brave. I wanna be brave. I wanna see my choices out in front of me.
In keeping with Reverend Casella's sermon today, he has taken today's reading from A Man in Full by Tom Wolfe. This story deals with Epictetus, an ancient Greek Stoic philosopher, and Conrad Hensley, a more modern day young man imprisoned for a minor crime. Okay, here we go, and hang on, this is heavy stuff. What would Epictetus have done with this bunch? What could he have done? How could he apply his lessons 2,000 years later in this grimy gray pod, this pigsty full of beasts who grunted about this and that and turning boys into bee-cats and jukin' punks? And yet, were they really any worse than Nero and his imperial guard? Epictetus spoke to him from half a world and 2,000 years away. The answer was somewhere in these pages. What little Conrad had learned about philosophy at Mount Diablo had seemed to concern people who were free and whose main problem was to choose among life's infinite possibilities. Only Epictetus began with the assumption that life is hard, brutal, punishing, narrow, and confining, a deadly business, that fairness and unfairness are beside the point. Only Epictetus, so far as Conrad knew, was a philosopher who had been stripped of everything, imprisoned, tortured, enslaved, threatened with death. And only Epictetus had looked his tormentors in the eye and said, "You do what you have to do, and I will do what I have to do, which is live and die like a man." And he prevailed. But most important of all, Epictetus understood. He understood. Only he understood why Conrad Hensley had refused to accept a plea bargain. Only Epictetus understood why he had refused to lower himself just a rung or two, demean himself a little bit, dishonor himself just a touch, confess to a minor crime, a mere misdemeanor, in order to avoid the risk of a jail sentence. Epictetus understood that each of us considers what is in keeping with his character. Conrad's lawyer, even his own wife, wanted him to compromise and plead falsely, but he knew himself and at how much he put his worth. He did not count himself as an ordinary thread in a tunic, but as the purple, that touch of brilliance that gives distinction to the rest. When the deputies announced the end of pod time, Conrad gathered up the folios of the Stoics, his letter, his writing tablet, his ballpoint pen, and walked to the cell with his shoulders back and his head held high.
We are part of this universe. We are in this universe. The universe is in us. Yes, the universe is in us. We are part of this universe. We are in this universe. The universe itself exists within us. We are part of this universe. We are in this universe. The universe is in us. Yes, the universe is in us.
Every atom in your body came from a star that exploded. You are all stardust. You are all stardust. From a star that exploded.
Look up at the night sky. We are part of it. The universe itself exists within us. We are stardust in the highest exalted way, called by the universe, reaching out to the universe. We are stardust in the highest exalted way, reaching out to the universe with these methods and tools of science.
Stand in the middle and enjoy everything both ways. The tininess of us, the enormity of the universe.
The atoms that make up the human body are traceable to the crucible that cooked light elements into heavy elements. These stars went unstable in their later years and then exploded, scattering their enriched guts across the galaxy. Look up at the night sky. We are part of it. The universe itself exists within us. We are stardust in the highest exalted way, called by the universe, reaching out to the universe. We are stardust in the highest exalted way, reaching out to the universe with these methods and tools of science. We are stardust in the highest exalted way, in the highest reaching out. The universe itself exists within us. We are part of this universe. We are in this universe. The universe is in us. Yes, the universe is in us.
Well, who would have ever thought that Neil deGrasse Tyson, geek of all geeks, nerd of all nerds, physicist, will become a rock star, but he has. So we thank our resident physicist in the house, Catherine Massey, for bringing us that video, which was quite excellent. And we thank Gary Cockrell for his first time out of the cannon as service associate. I have to give you, Gary, the award for being the most comfortable first-time service associate. You remind me of Walter Cronkite or someone like that. Maybe I should give it maybe a more up-to-date newscaster, but you're doing great. And of course, we thank Sarah for being our tech guru. Well, I'm trying to do a few things different these days. I have some new technology that you can't see in front of me, and trying to do some different things with my preaching. So I want to just ask you to bear with me and hold on to your horses today. So let me just click this. I want to remind you that next week we're going to be in the joint worship service with our brothers and sisters from the Durango UU congregation. The minister there is the Reverend Katie Kendarian Morris, and she's invited us to join them as Tamara and I will be away for some leave, and I'll be working remotely. Well, this week is not the sermon that I promised you. I had promised you a sermon from one of my colleagues in Arizona, but didn't hear from him. So I decided to go ahead and do my own thing. So I just hope that you can go with us, as Gary said, into some kind of deep territory as we talk about Epictetus, people in full, and Unitarian Universalism. Now imagine yourself sitting in a prison cell and you're surrounded by people unlike you. Despite being a moral person, someone who stood up for your deepest beliefs, you're staring down a long prison sentence with little chance of parole. It doesn't matter what you were convicted of or if you did it, you're stuck there with nowhere to go. In the words of the master storyteller, Tom Wolfe, in his book, A Man in Full, Conrad was trying to figure out, quote, what to do with himself in this grimy gray pod, this pigsty full of beasts who grunt about this and that and turning boys into B-cats and juking punks. Just let those terms, B-cats and juking punks, roll right over you. Now you're expecting a book in the mail. Instead, the guy brings you a book with a similar title, but a different subject. Life is already bad, and now stuff is going sideways, and you find yourself more frustrated and edgy. Now, many listening may say to themselves, this sounds like my life now. But let me just tell you right off, unless you're in prison, it ain't your life. I see similarities between living in COVID time and prison time. In COVID times, things turned sideways. They're not just sideways, things and people have gone underground or evaporated before our very eyes. I'm speaking about the 534,000 deaths that have left an indelible mark on our nation's fabric. Here in Doña Ana County, there have been 408 deaths. And it just ticks me off when I reflect on the amazing lives that could have been saved if he had merely attempted a national plan for curtailing the spread of coronavirus. I watch many national news features about how the deceased lived, their dreams, their impact on their families and communities. And I get overwhelmed by the magnitude of the loss. It just shakes me to my core. Now back to the story. You're in the pod and a man delivers a book about the Stoics. Who are the Stoics and Epictetus? And how do you even pronounce that name? It's sort of like Kalani. Is it Epictetus, Epictetus, Epictetus? But you read Epictetus's words, and suddenly your world opens up. Your mind sees the world in ways never seen before. And you're thinking. Epictetus began by assuming this: life is hard, brutal, punishing, narrow and confining, and a deadly business. And for him, fairness and unfairness were beside the point. You could say that's worlds from Unitarian Universalism. You'd be right. You see the glass as half full. Life is full of promises. It has unending horizons. It's life-affirming, open-ended, and fair. But most of the planet's population sees the world through Epictetus's lenses. Almost half of the world's population, over 3 billion people, live on less than $2.50 a day. Now that might be too global for some of us. So you say, what about Las Cruces? I'm glad you asked. 30% of our citizens live below poverty. The top 20% own 49% of the income. 7 out of 10 Black children live in poverty. 4 out of 10 Latino children live in poverty, whereas only 2 of 10 white children live in poverty. 29% of Latinos have no health insurance. 24% of Latino adults don't have a high school diploma. For these people, the stimulus check is already drastically late. The financial guru Michelle Singletary says the stimulus will cut child poverty in half. It is a hand up, not a hand out. Unfortunately, Republicans rejected that idea. The economist Heather McGhee argues, had America adopted policies to close the black-white economic gap 20 years ago, the US gross domestic product, that's all that we produce, would be an estimated $16 trillion higher. That's 8 times the cost of Biden's stimulus package. Now, if you were living as a UU among the Romans as Epictetus, you'd be an outsider, living on the margins, treated as a member of a lower caste, and dealing with punishing circumstances. You'd be banished or fed to the lions. Talk about a committee of 3. Life for you wouldn't be no crystal stair, as poet Langston Hughes wrote in 1922. So given our value system as UUs, why then are we living so frantically these days? And I'm not referring to the precautions required because of coronavirus. We must remain safe and honor the CDC guidelines if we're to survive this thing. I'm talking about the general dis-ease, anxiety, and panic we have created. People are squeezing their neighbors, racing to get the vaccine of all things. There's plenty to go around, but it takes time. It takes time. Things in New Mexico have gotten so bad, we made the national news. Why? There's massive cheating with people shortcutting vaccination lines. The governor now imposes strict fines on persons caught circumventing the vaccine distribution system. She was forced into it. We've witnessed a breakdown in how we're treating one another. The Reverend William Barber argues that we've allowed a breach to develop between America's promises and what it delivers. In real time, we see it right before us. Young people dressing up as senior citizens trying to get the vaccine. Folks willing to pay hundreds of dollars, even thousands, to jump ahead. New Mexico ranks as the 36th most populated state, but we're number one in coronavirus cheating. Even with our sparse population, we're acting like we live in a crowded city and sacrificing each other to get a shot. When I look outside, I see open land, beautiful mountains, big sky. Yet it seems we're living in a grimy gray pod full of beasts who are grunting about this and that. As Reverend Barber said, we need to be repairers of the breach. Repairers of the breach. Epictetus was a Greek philosopher. He had been stripped of everything, imprisoned, tortured, enslaved, threatened with death. And Epictetus looked his tormentors in the eye and said, "You do what you have to do, and I will do what I have to do, which is to live and die like a man." And he prevailed. How do we contemporary UUs look our current situation in the eye and not fall prey to the individualist attitude? Remember, we are a community. And how do we remember our core UU values and principles and resist the temptation to act as lone rangers? Kathy Baines, Clayton Flower's daughter, told me something recently. Her family had to shame the Department of Health in Doña Ana County to get Clayton his shots. Our patriarch, 105 years old, awaiting his shot in the back of the bus. It's a shame. Who knows what year Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to sit in the colored section of the bus? 1955. Is it time for what Barber calls the fourth civil rights movement? This beacon of light, a model citizen of Las Cruces, fellow Tuskegee Airman, defender of the Constitution, squeezed out by younger New Mexicans. So I hope you see now why I say this is a civil rights and a justice issue. We've got to be repairers of the breach. Most of us believe science. Well, the CDC and Dr. Fauci say we need to calm down. What can we learn from these ancient people called the Stoics, who lived 2,000 years ago? Well, the philosopher Epictetus said, each of us considers what is in keeping with his character. And I'll amend that to say their character. The question becomes, what does UU character look like? I know some people tire of hearing me say this, but I'm going to say it, and I'm going to say it, and I'm going to say it. Love is the guiding principle of UU character. We've got to convey love in all that we do. We've got to convey it. We must care for each other. Our mission at the church is to create a loving community, not an unloving community. Care for each other. We're not beasts turning boys and girls into bee cats. We're people guided by transformation and justice. I shared the following story with the board a couple of weeks ago. So let me share this story with you. Tamara and I were hunting recently in Central Texas, and our guide was a 36-year-old white man who was a native of the town that we were visiting, Mason, population 2,115. We noticed that people would stop and speak to him and didn't acknowledge us, even though we were sitting or standing right beside the man. So a day after this first happened, Tamara said to Bobby, the guide, I don't appreciate Gary coming over here, having this long conversation with you, but not speaking to us. We're here as his guest, his clients, and he and his wife can't bring themselves to utter a simple hello. What is that about? So Bobby gave this lame excuse about the man focusing on this lax coworker, but then he said, yeah, he probably is a racist. So later I asked, are there people in this town who have never seen a Black person, aside from TV? And he began sharing the town historically had 2 Black families, and everyone knew those families. Now we have more than 2 Black families in Las Cruces, but truth be told, the population is only 2.8% African American. And the same for Asians and Native peoples. Now imagine living in a Central Texas town where you're the only Black family. It might feel you're in a gray, grimy pod full of beasts. Next, I asked Bobby, do people here see us, Tamara and I, African Americans, as fully human? Do they consider us equals? I mean, even the teenagers came up and spoke to him, had a conversation, and couldn't even say, how are you doing? So without saying, this is Bobby, we really don't consider you fully human and definitely not equal, he began talking about racism in Mason, Texas, and how he didn't care about the color of people's skin. Who am I to judge his response? No one. In the New York Times op-ed titled Our Economy of White Resentment, Heather McGhee, an economist, provided the real answer. Before the 1963 March on Washington, white support for guaranteed jobs and minimum living standards was 70%. After President Johnson signed the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts, that number dropped to 35%, and it remains at an all-time low. She called, quote, racial resentment the key uncredited actor in our backslide, end quote. You see, they believe that when people of color rise, whites sink. The truth is, when people of color rise, everyone rises. Our UU values guide us to respond in love. So I just listen to Bobby trying to understand. Who's calling you to listen at this moment? Who do you understand yourself to be? And who are we as a beloved community? How do we allow our sense of character to lead us as we wait in line? You see, the people in the front of the line are just as human as the people behind them, and they're just as equal. I say in all things, calm down, breathe, be less anxious, take the long view, be people in full, and remain committed to values and principles. I pray, as the beautiful chorus sang, let us be brave and let us see our choices clearly. In A Man in Full, Epictetus said he wanted to count himself not as an ordinary thread in the tunic, but as the purple, that touch of brilliance that gives distinction to the rest. May we all count ourselves as the purple, the color of humility, the color of royalty. When the deputies announced the end of pod time, our main character, Conrad, gathered up the folios of the Stoics, his letter, his writing tablet, his ballpoint pen, and walked to his cell with his shoulders back and his head high. May we maintain our character, practice humility and gratitude, and hold our shoulders back, keep our heads high as we continue along in COVID time. Amen. Ashe, and may it be so.
Thank you for those words, Reverend Kalani, and I suspect Walter Cronkite would join me in saying that sermon probably came off better than whatever your colleague didn't send you. So thank you. Thank you for making sense out of Epictetus.
Thank you, sir.
Despite the fact that we must practice social distancing in order to show the effect, in order to slow the effects of COVID-19, we remain connected in spirit as a beloved community. Many of the expenses of the church continue despite our not meeting in person. Please refer to the electronic order of service or the member section of the church website to see how you can continue to make your pledges. The church also continues its support of organizations identified by the Social Justice Committee as recipients for our Change for Change program. We can't collect your actual change, so please convert whatever coins you would donate as if the basket were being passed, and continue your Change for Change donations. This quarter's donations will go to Cherish Canine All Breed Rescue. This 501c3 organization, founded in 2013, is dedicated to rescuing lost, abandoned, neglected, and abused dogs in Las Cruces and Doña Ana County. Cherish Canine provides foster care through its network of volunteers, veterinary care for sick and injured animals it takes in, and adoptions for dogs in need of permanent loving homes. As an all-volunteer organization, every penny it receives goes to fulfilling its mission. If you have questions about Cherish Canine, contact Dave or Eileen Steele. They have adopted 3 wonderful dogs through this life-saving organization. Thank you, David and Eileen. Thank you, Catherine. If you are joining this worship service online, are looking for a spiritual home, and are sympathetic with Unitarian Universalist values and principles, the UU Church of Las Cruces may be the place for you. We believe that when you become a member, you are entering into a warm and deep relationship with the church and all the members and friends. You are becoming a part of something much bigger than any of us. You are becoming part of a movement to change our community and our world. The way to join the church is to sign the virtual membership book through the link in the electronic order of service. Or you can call the church, leave a message, and a member of the membership committee will contact you.
Our closing hymn is I've Got Peace Like a River in My Soul. I invite you to sing with me.
Like a river,
thank you, Catherine and Gary and Sarah, and shout out to Mark for visiting us today. And I want to say that we had a hard time choosing any readings today, let alone closing words. We're in the middle of Lent. This month is the anniversary of two UU martyrs' deaths. Yesterday was the anniversary of Susan B. Anthony's death. Today is Pi Day. And if that's not enough, tomorrow is Everything You Think Is Wrong Day. So you have plenty of choices there. So having said all that, our closing words are from Brian Andreas, who says, say yes. Whatever it is, say yes with your whole heart. And as simple as it sounds, that's all the excuse life needs to grab you by the hands and start to dance.
Please join me in saying the words to extinguish the flame. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I've got enough sunshine on my face. I've got enough sunshine on my face, and it's smiling down. And I've got enough sunshine on my face. Today is gonna be an amazing day. Today is gonna be a day I made it. I've got enough sunshine on my face. I've got enough sunshine on my face, and it's smiling down. And I've got enough sunshine on my face. Today is gonna be an amazing day. Today is gonna be a day I made it be. I feel the love. I am the love. Today is gonna be an amazing day. Today is gonna be an amazing day. Today is gonna be a day I let it be. I feel the love, and I am the love. Today is gonna be